Yeah, yeah. Whoa. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular, yeah, celebrities. Started with a combo, now the world leaning in. Four vets in the room, let the stories begin. No filters, no scripts, just wisdom and sin. We talk hustle hard and the places we've been. From the field to the mic, that growth is the lesson. Turn pressure into presence, that's the real confession. Got the crowd tuned in for the raw and the rare. You can feel the truth breathe through the air. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular celebrities. Talk music, talk ball, talk rank and salute. Every topic on the table, every word in pursuit. We the voice for the ones that the world overlook. Turn pain into punchlines, life into the hook. Yes, in the chair, we breaking the mold. Every episode's heat, every message is gold. No gimmicks, no mask, just purpose and peace. When the lights come on, that real don't cease. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular celebrity. We ain't chasing fame, we redefining the game. Give light to the name that the system can't tame. Got the people tuned in, cause they feel our lane. It's the voice of the real, not a chase for acclaim. Mic check, then the vibe start to settle for a host. One stage and the truth is the metal. So before that show start, let the beat breathe steady. When you hear the name, just know we ready. Oh yeah, when you hear the name, just know we ready. Unpopular celebrities. Yeah, we speak that truth so effortlessly. Living like no script, just energy. From the block to the base to the legacy. Unpopular celebrities.
What up? What up, party people? What is going on with y'all today? Super Bowl Sunday. Another great show. Another great day for some of us, for all of us, most of us, whatever it is. What up, Billy?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Sunday. I'm still getting echoes somewhere. Well, anyway, happy Sunday. Glad to see everybody here. It's yours truly, Philly DC. 1/4 of the unpopular celebrities. You got Pete doing the engineering boards. Jessica Player out in the place. Dale Brown doing our things. Again, we are unpopular celebrities. Thank you for joining us today. This is your first time. Welcome. Make sure before you hit the door, you hit that like. Make sure you share and subscribe. Catch our other work on YouTube, also on Spotify, things of that nature. For those that's in the building, we'll give it a couple of minutes before we get started. We got a good show for you today. We want to make sure we get as many folks in here as possible because there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about that affects folks. Let's see. Divine says intro ain't work because you got that enlisted pay. Well said. Well said. Well said. Anyway, like I was saying, we advertised the show all week. A couple of our listeners asked us to do this show, actually for quite a while. And pretty much the show is the Air Force has a problem. Well, they have many problems, but in this particular case, we're talking about military disparity, enlisted versus officer pay. Full transparency, I myself, and then also Pete served in the Air Force. Myself, 32 years. Pete, 20 plus years at different ranks. And we both started off. Pete, did you start off as Airman Basic or A1C?
One striper.
Oh yeah, you don't know no better. Anyway, I understand because I was a slick sleeve when I came in.
We should.
I started off as a slick sleeve with a wife and a newborn baby in Holloman, New Mexico, trying to make ends meet. And it was rough because I wasn't making a lot of money. And so, fast forward to today, slick sleeves, or otherwise known as Airman Basics, make a lot more money than I did back in the day. However, I would argue that there is still an issue with pay, which is the reason why we're here today. So as we get ready to get started, a couple of things I want to level set before we get started. This is not a show about to officer bash. We're not bashing any officers in this show today. Just want to make sure that's clear. Don't have no issues with officers. I served under many good officers, some bad, but mostly good officers. This is not anti-mission. We understand the whole thing that comes around being able to serve in uniform and serve our country. We already know about that. This show is strictly about systems versus reality, meaning we already know what the system is. We already know how important it is to serve the country. We already understand the benefits that we receive. But what's the reality? The reality is there is still a pay gap between officer and enlisted ranks. So, Pete, over to you. Any comments,
Yeah,
questions?
I'm ready to get started. I mean, I think we all know if y'all ain't looked at you could look at the military pay. It's all out there. Not just talking about the Air Force, but the military in general. But the military pay chart is out there for both officer and enlisted, so it's not a secret or anything. Everybody knows what you're making as far as base pay and BAH and stuff like that. What you do on the side is what you do on the side, but everything else, everybody knows what you're making, so not a secret. But a lot of people will have. I don't want to say issues, but I will say issues. I guess that's the best word to come up with the pay disparity. And it's funny because I don't know if officers talk about this in their own world, but I don't think like enlisted ever talk to officers like, yo, you think you get paid too much? You don't think you don't get paid enough? I haven't heard any too many officers be like, I don't get paid that much. I wish I got paid more. Not really a conversation I hear. Maybe in the lieutenant ranks, captain maybe, but not major. Major and above, nope, nope. But we'll talk about why. I got some interesting points to why they get paid more, why we don't get paid more. Um, some is probably truth. Some is probably just my opinion. More probably my opinion than actual truth. But anyway, yeah, stop there.
Yeah, in my experience, I've heard some conversations with officers expressing that they should be getting paid more money. And I think it falls in line with one of the things we'll discuss later as far as the difference between civilian compensation and military compensation. I mean, it's clear there is a gap in there. But um, I would argue for the enlisted side, it's a much huge gap. So
Mm.
So to level set, this is how we're going to propose it. This is how I propose we start. I say we start from looking at it from the perspective of a tech sergeant. Tech sergeant is known as a technical expert, as you know, and they're usually the ones that's getting the grind on, taking care of the staff sergeants and airmen. They're usually considered the technical experts in the formation. And let me ask you a question. What do you think in the life cycle of a tech sergeant or airman in general? What is the pivotal point where you think an airman choose to stay or go? 5 years, 15 years,
I
10,
think
12
yeah,
years,
between 7 to 10. 7 to 10.
7 to 10. Yeah, I would agree with that. So, looking at it from a tech sergeant's perspective, at the 10-year mark, when a tech sergeant has to decide whether or not he should choose to stay or go, I think we start there. So for most tech sergeants, let's no particular AFSC because we won't get into like say somebody would argue, well, this is different if you're in like say cyber. We'll get into that in a second because cyber is excluded from this because as you know, cyber they created the warrant officer program.
Yeah.
So for those folks who are in those career fields that they consider critical these days in cyber, They created warrant officers, which will lead to my point later on in the show. Let's just take a typical tech sergeant first. I see there's a comment from Tony Feliciano.
The only
Yes.
line used to differentiate O's and E's is level of responsibility, which is an institutional. Hey, thanks for the follow. Which is an institutional supported by literally treated E's and O's differently from an organizational structure and PME. Being forced to think like a rank based on an arch system or archive system and not based on individuals' ability to lead is opposed of the civilian side. High functioning NCOs, senior NCOs are leaving because they can get paid and treated like a CGO in the civilian sector.
Hey, I won't dispute that. I mean, I love the part where you said our performing tech sergeants, young master sergeants are leaving because when they get in the civilian sector, depending on the field they're in, they get paid starting off as a CGO, which leads to my next point when we get started. Looking at a tech sergeant at 10 years, based on the 2025 pay chart, a tech sergeant at 10 years make $3,900 a month. A major in 04 at 10 years makes $7,300.
God dang.
That's double the pay.
Dang.
So you think about it. A tech sergeant who is considered a technical expert is making $3,900 a month at 10 years. Whereas a major who is typically, in some cases, a commander, maybe officer in charge of a section, things of that nature, is making 7,300. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's wild when you think about, like you said, nearly double what they're making. 72. I didn't know it was that much money. So I think back to Tony's point, it's a level of responsibility. So you worked under commanders, I worked under commanders. Knowing what a commander has to deal with, getting fired and stuff like that, that's a lot of responsibility. A lot of responsibility. But a tech sergeant has the same responsibility. No, let me not say that. Let me go back and retract my statement. They don't have the same responsibility, but they still have responsibility to airmen. But not, I don't think majors have double the responsibility, especially not a major. If you said a lieutenant colonel, maybe a full bird colonel, okay, yeah, definitely. But tech sergeant been in 10 years grinding to a major, holy crap. Because I would venture to say a tech sergeant has a lot more experience than a 10-year major. A 10-year tech sergeant has a lot more experience than a 10-year major.
Mm.
That's just my opinion. 2 comments.
Yeah. Hey, before you read the comments, let me make sure I set the record straight. So I read that pay difference from 2024. The 2025 pay chart is different, but pretty much the same as far as double the pay. And these 6 at 10 years makes $4,585 base pay, whereas a major at 10 years makes $9,075. So still double the pay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Crazy to think. I never wanted to get out. After getting out, I got promoted to senior position because of my work ethic, not because someone CC like me. Bruh, amen to that. My man Barry, for sure on that one. For sure. Which goes to the point, DC, about degrees. Why do enlisted place so much emphasis on education when you do not get paid for it?
That's a great point, and we're going to get to that. But I'll quickly give you my quick comment on that one. It's not going to sound nice, but when they created the pay chart many moons ago, and I'll get into that in a second, they didn't think about enlisted being in a role of needing education. They thought of us as as just the workforce, the laborers, right? Whereas the officers, they looked at them on a whole total different tier and how important education is. You think that's not right? Think about it. Think about all of the educational opportunities officers get between going to officer squadron officer school, between going to um, the National War College. Most officers have 2 master's degrees.
Mhm.
Two,
Mhm.
two, and some of them get like a year sabbatical to go to school.
Mhm.
And you think about enlisted, how do you earn your degree? TA,
Yep.
loans. You know what I mean? Like you get PME. So they look at enlisted, at least when the pay charts created many moons ago, as laborers.
So how come you never went officer?
Good question. Be honest with you, I was dumb and stupid. I didn't realize it. I didn't know. I really was not aware or educated on the big difference between enlisted and officers in pay.
Your screen
So
is frozen.
okay,
Here we start
I'll
this
reboot.
again.
You want me to jump out or jump back in?
Because I don't know what it
Okay,
is.
hold on. Okay.
I think it's supposed to be I got my first 2 degrees during my career and didn't get anything for it. Still making roughly 60K. When I got out, I got my master's and making roughly, bro, that's crazy. That is crazy. I thought he was getting out and getting back in. Yeah, that is wild. I know I think back to Devon's point, we just get degrees because that's what's told to us. If you want to get promoted, if you want to get a yearly award or something like that, you get your degree. It's kind of what is told to us. That's kind of what's jumped down our throat. But to be honest, it's like, what if they had a program where if you got your degree, you got extra pay? So you would be like a E5B for a bachelor's, or E6B for a bachelor's, or E7M for a master's. Do you think that would keep people around more? Or do you think that would keep, or not, that wouldn't change anything at all? Because, like, back to Barry's point, 60K in the military, and now he's making 260. Like, I mean, that's almost 3 times as much.
What's his what was his AFSC?
He's a dog handler.
So you say he's making 260 a year?
Yeah.
Doing like presidential security?
No.
Like
he was a dog handler. I think he does some.
Oh, he
Barry,
was a
what you
dog
do now?
handler.
I know you do something with
That's what I'm
contracting.
saying.
I don't know if you want to say facts, but if an O has a bachelor's and doesn't have to get additional degrees to get promoted, why do enlisted need it, bro? That's a great point.
That's not necessarily true. I am aware of some officers who were stagnated at a particular grade, case in point major, or captain, and they didn't have a master's degree. So that is true. What I'm not sure is, I'm not sure if it's a requirement, but I'm aware of some folks that were in my formation that did not make major, maybe even light colonel, because they didn't have a master's degree and it was pushing them to get it done.
Yeah, he's a senior program manager for all electronic warfare rangers in Europe.
So I am curious. I don't want to get off track, but I am curious. So here's a good example for right here for Barry, right? He was a K9 handler, and now he's doing something totally out of his AFSC, making a lot of good money because of it. Did you earn any of your credentials, a degree, while you were in?
Yeah, he said he got his bachelor's while he was in.
Was that the trigger that got him to where he's at now?
Oh,
Did
yeah,
he have
2
to get any
bachelors.
additional master's degree? Did he get credential?
Yeah, he said, well, he must have jumped out during that time. He said, I got my first 2 degrees during my career and didn't get anything for it. When I got out, I got my master's, and that's when he got his pay jump.
Okay.
Tony had another long comment. Enlisted PME will force us to believe we are important and we should care about airmen and mission. When compensation is discussed, we now have less level of responsibility, make it make sense. We also let me read this off my phone. Level of responsibility, make it make sense. We also actually lead and manage people directly. Our enlisted force is closing the gap on education and requirements and academics and overall education. Okay, the tactical, operational, strategical impact of the mission and people. I think we are closing the gap. Definitely think
In
we are.
terms of what now?
Getting degrees.
Oh yeah, I was going to cover that later too. Um, anyway, let's push. We got another comment. I was going to push on
No.
a lot of stuff to cover. All right, so we already mentioned that retention window. So according to a DoD RAND report from 2018 to 2024, the highest voluntary separations occur between 8 and 12 years. That's exactly where an airman hits staff sergeant and tech sergeant.
Right.
I think this is where the Air Force retention choke point is. And so the debate we had, and I want to kind of go down this a little bit longer. Who runs the shop? Your maintainer shop, your cop shop, your admin shop? Who trains the airmen? Who fixes bad plans? Is it the major or is it the tech sergeant?
Right. It's usually text on it.
Right. So from a cop perspective, who is the one training airmen how to handcuff? Who is the one training desk sergeants?
Yeah.
Who is the ones training folks how to do close quarter battle? Is it the major or the tech sergeant?
Yeah, it's text on. We know that. Maybe a
If
master.
there's a problem with training, is there a problem with records? I don't know if people do records anymore, but I remember those days doing records. Is there a problem with folks getting posted out to guard mountain to posts and stuff? Who does it? The major or the tech sergeant?
Yeah, text art.
So then the question would be is why do you feel that a tech sergeant makes half than a major outside of the degree?
Half is crazy. Half is crazy. I don't know why half. I will say it seems to be that, like Tony said, the level of responsibility.
Pete,
Because to be honest, like
okay.
the tech sergeant's doing everything, but the major's still responsible.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the tech sergeant head's gonna roll if something happens, but the major pause head is right behind them.
Right.
So I think that's where, like, if this is where it gets interesting. Say if you lose a gun, right? If you
Mhm.
lose your gun, the person in charge of the armory might get fired. The person who lost the gun might get Article 15, lose a stripe. But the officer, they're gonna get fired. They probably won't lose no rank, but they'll never make rank again. Well, it'll be a long time before they make rank again. So I think when you
Yeah.
think of the level of responsibility, they look at it more or less like they are moving up in the organization. Enlisted looks at it like we're just working. That's why I never really bought into the aspect of this is a career. No, it's just a job. It's just a job. Now officers could look at it like a career because of the levels they move up. They move up not only in pay dramatically, but they also move up in position dramatically.
Mm, I agree and disagree. I agree that there's the officer development is a lot more deliberate than the enlisted. It's a lot more. Seeing how my former commanders and the other officers used to really look at the officers' ROP, like their records, and kind of map where they go.
Right.
Whereas enlisted, it's like, yo, you go before a board, you test all the other stuff. Now, for an officer, they always say, which I love, they say, yo, if an officer gets an LOR compared to enlisted, that can end their career.
But it's hard for
But
them to get LORs.
right.
Yeah.
And to your point, yeah, an officer may get fired, but he may end up in the command somewhere else, he or
Right.
she.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's a big difference.
But
So I see your point.
yeah, that's why I say that they're looking at it more or less like career. Because they can, I mean, how long can an officer serve for?
I guess it depends on their rank, but
Well,
I do know.
if they keep progressing,
Yeah.
they can serve forever. 70
It
years.
seems like that.
Yeah. So that's more or less like a corporation. For us, we have a higher tenure. I don't know if officers have a higher tenure.
I believe they do, but like I think generals, they get to a point where it's, they have to get requests for permission to retire, I believe.
Mm.
But yeah, they do have a top off point for officers. I'm looking at least based on um like you can't be a lieutenant for 30 years.
No, I would think that's
You know what I'm
impossible.
saying? Yeah. So I
Don
mean, no
says
different
until
than
you hit
airmen.
CCC, so command chief, they pour into them and not into other chiefs who could use it, uh, or prepare senior NCOs earlier for these higher positions. Yeah, I don't think they do either. Uh, 40 years O's get 100% retirement,
Yeah, that's even enlisted.
but who
Same
can
thing.
serve 40 years? How?
Well, so really the real thing is for an enlisted person, like as a chief, you're capped at 30. The only way you can go past 30 is if you get into a position where you're working for a 2, a 3, and a 4-star general. Hence the reason why you have people like John Storms, Kenny Bruce, our own Simsav Dave Wolf. They're in those special positions where they work for a 4-star, 3-star general. They can go beyond 30. And yeah, if you hit 40 years, you get 100%. No different if you hit 30, you get 70%.
75.
So 75. You go 32, like myself, you get 80%, and then so on and so forth. The only difference is for an enlisted chief, it's a little bit more difficult than, say, I guess a general. Because what I mean, it's like you don't you have to get permission to go further. But I mean, usually, generals are it's a whole different ball game when it comes to generals and enlisted, man. Whole different ball game. But anyway, moving on. So then the question would be is how do we get to this point? I mean, I think we all can agree that one example between tech sergeants and majors is significant. Real Tony B. Gooch, what's up? It's not the same. They just changed the name. The impact is almost the same as an Argo 15 for the enlisted.
Hmm. They do have a high 3. Okay. Uh, Devon said officers have to hit milestones, but the
Mhm.
milestones are kind of like you said, like mapped out and given to you. It's like,
I wouldn't say
hey,
it's
this is
yeah,
what you
I'm
need to
sorry.
do to
Yeah.
make
Yeah, go ahead.
captain.
Yeah.
A, B, C, D. For
Yeah.
us, there's no A, B, C, D how to make staff sergeant.
Um, I think it is. It's just not as
Clear.
I wouldn't say clear. It's not as, I guess, clear cut. You know what I mean? Like, to be a staff sergeant, they say like back in the day when they had records, you had to have like your 7 level and all this other stuff or whatever. But for officers, it's like up till major, it's not difficult at all.
No.
Not. And that pay is huge.
Yeah, as you
Correct. I
read.
could have done 33 with my boss exactly, but left at 30.
At,
Go ahead.
Edgar, I think I'm saying your name right. So at tactical level, it's easy to compare officers and sand enlisted responsibilities. However, most officers operate on the staff above and technical level of control. What an officer is expected to as a staff officer will differ dramatically from what enlisted are expected to do.
What do you mean? Can you be a little bit more elaborate a little bit more?
Basically
Because I
saying,
would
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Basically, it sounds like he's saying, his last sentence is what an officer is expected differs dramatically from what enlisted is expected on the staff
So
level.
so then I would say why. You know what I mean? Like you take a major, right, at the staff level, and you take a master sergeant at the staff level. Why would it be expected more from a major than a master sergeant? It's because he's a major? Is it because of the education? That's rhetorical. I didn't. I'm just
Now,
curious.
fam, where do they get their answers from? I don't know. I do think their responsibility on paper is different, but day to day operations, I think, It's almost like I hate to use a person, but we all know Elon Musk. Like he's in charge of Tesla, but he don't do anything to build the cars or he hires people to do that. So that's like the officer. The officer doesn't do all that stuff. But Elon is the one you hear about. So if something happens to Tesla, they automatically think Elon. That's kind of like how officers are. If something happens at the cop squadron, depending on what level you operate at, you think of the commander. You don't think of the airman unless somebody got shot or something like that. But a vehicle accident, you think about, well, major, what happened? Officer, what happened? And then they have to answer to it. And most officers be like, I wasn't in the car. I don't know. But of course, because they get paid more, they got to answer those questions to what things they weren't involved in.
Hmm. So, question: why do you think the military pay is the way it is today?
I
Like,
think
who came up with that
yeah,
idea?
you talked about at
Okay,
the beginning is that enlisted were looked at as one thing, officers were looked at as another thing, and it's never been changed. Way, way, way back in when I don't know how long ago, probably in the beginning of the army days.
right.
There are enlisted
You
members with more education than their flight commander, and sometimes more than their CC. True, they just got it late. They just didn't have whatever was afforded to the officer, whether it was grit, whether it was knowledge, whether it was whatever it was, for them to get it before they came in. Most of our enlisted people get it when they come in. Financial reasons, there's 1,000 reasons.
Yeah, put it in the context. The military pay system was created in 1949. Career Compensation Act. Doing my research. Basically means military pay was written into the federal law, not by commanders. Looking at the enlisted education, since we're talking about that, from the DoD demographics from the Air Force Almanac, more than 60% have some college. This is enlisted folks. More than 9 to 10% bachelor's, 2 to 3% master's. It's probably a little bit more than that. That was from 2003 and 2024. So the Devon McCoy's, let's see, pay scale was established when DC joined. Anyway, moving on to Devon McCoy's other legitimate point a few minutes ago. Yeah, we have some enlisted members with more education than their flight commanders, but just like you said, they got it at a later point. But my argument would be this: doesn't that mean more education, more experience, more knowledge? I mean, is the argument that yes, you have your folks in your formation who has more education than a flight commander? So then the question would be is outside of the rank, why shouldn't the enlisted person make more money? Is it because of the rank or is it because of the experience?
The rank and
Because
responsibility.
I know some chief master sergeants who have just an associate's degree and they're at the fourth level of command chief,
Mm-hmm.
just an associate's.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas fast forward, you got a tech sergeant with a master's degree. Does that mean the tech sergeant should be paid as much as a tier four command chief?
No, he don't have the same responsibility.
Mm. So could that be said for the same argument as the flight commander who doesn't have as much education as their people inside their formation?
Yeah, I mean that's what I kind of just talked about was the responsibility piece. Uh, on a day to day, the enlisted have a bigger responsibility, but on an but looking at it on a whole scale, I think officers have bigger responsibility.
So then the question is bigger responsibility based on what? Because of their rank?
Yeah, the rank is associated with the responsibility.
So that kind of unpacks something. So let's break it down. When you say officers have more of a bigger responsibility than the enlisted person, this is based on their rank. Then the question is, how do you obtain that rank? You
Well,
have a degree, and then you go to school, whether it be the academy or you get the degree through the academy, or you have it and you go through ROTC. So when you say officers, you start at the lowest tier, lieutenants, right? Compared to, say, a senior airman or a staff sergeant. A staff sergeant's been in what? We said tech sergeant's about at the 10-year, we use that as an example. You look at a staff sergeant, what, 5 to 8 years? Whereas a lieutenant, what? Second lieutenant, 0 to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so whereas already staff sergeant, they have more responsibility than staff sergeant
On paper,
on paper.
yeah, they could do more things.
Right. Based
Yeah,
on the
their
rank,
rank.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the only difference between the lieutenant and the staff sergeant is what? The degree.
Yeah.
The degree. So then my curious question to you is, what do you value the most? Do you value the piece of paper with a degree or the experience?
I think both are important, but if you were to put, I'd probably say 51-49 experience to degree.
Tony B brought up a good question, which we were talking about. He said the question is, why do they have that responsibility?
Back to your point, it was given to them from way back in the whatever days, 1940s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's never been changed because it works.
Right.
And this is what I say when people say, this is why I get pissed off when people say, as enlisted, like this is a career. It's not a career. It definitely isn't. It's just a job. If you want to think of it like a career, because that's going to give you more esprit de corps, that's going to motivate you more, sure. Hey, call it what you want to. I just calling it just strictly a job. That's all it is. The officers, I see why they say it is a career.
Yeah, I don't agree with that one. I think anything you dedicate your time to, whether it be 5 years, eight, well, actually, if you go beyond 10 years, you might as well say it's a career. Because if you look at it, you could easily go somewhere else. To me, a career is something you dedicate your time and your energy in, right? All bought in. And then you could easily go somewhere else, but you don't. So it's a career. Whether or not it's not as advantageous or beneficial as an officer, it's still a career.
Okay. I think it's just semantics on words, but so you would say if you spent 10 years at McDonald's, that's a career?
Yeah, for that time, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you just because you don't call it your primary job that you want to do, I think if you spend significant time at that job, it's a career. And I
Okay.
think the sacrifices you have to make in uniform is considered a career. Um, so one thing is certain, I think for years we've been crying about how, not crying, but beating the drum about how important or the issue is with military pay and the disparity. So there was quite a several amount of leaders who have spoke on that. Our current SimSav, Dave Wolf, said during December 8th, during his assumption of responsibility, he said airmen deserve better than having to solve problems. They wouldn't exist if they were properly equipped.
Hmm.
If you break it down, it means support includes pay. Pay is a
Oh,
resource.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
And then you have our very own SimSav, former SimSav Joanne Bass during 2023, 2024. She was famous for beating the wardrobe about it too. She was the one that said pay chart hasn't evolved since 1949.
Yep.
It's the same issue that all of the current SimSav has inherited.
Hold on.
Former CSAV,
I
go
gotta
ahead,
step
go
out
ahead.
real quick. Go ahead.
Okay,
Keep
no
going.
worries. Former CSAF David Alvin said if airmen are worried about making ends meet, they're less likely to stay. Pretty much that means the pay is tied directly to retention. And then you have our own shout out to the Air Force Sergeants Association. They're always advocating for more pay for airmen. Back in 2023, 2024 legislative cycles, they stated the inadequate compensation contributes to retention challenges, particularly among experienced enlisted airmen. So it begs the question, man, like where do we go from here? Like what is the issue? Like why for some reason we can't get this right? I think I might have missed this comment, but from Edgar Arnold, thanks for your comment, man. Hope I pronounced your name correctly. He said, for example, battalion and brigade staff were planning and coordinating the long term operations of the unit. All your S3 is planning and coordinating future operations and current operations. And the S3 major and XO major, along with your S3 sergeant major, are ultimately accountable for. Oh, that is a great point. Great point. Great point. Your S3 sergeant major are ultimately accountable for driving everything the organization is required to do. Devon McCoy says degrees are seen as competence. Agree with that one too. And he also says, which is why you should retire at 20. That's another topic for another day, man. I've heard people say that you should retire at 20. I'm not totally sold on that one. I think if you enjoy what you do, then stay. I've always said if you're looking to get rich in the military, your mind is in the wrong game unless you're really savvy with money, saving, investing. But straight out pay, even for officers, they could get paid more somewhere else. So you don't stay for the pay. But that doesn't mean that there's an issue with what we're getting paid now. So moving on. So going on to back in 2025. So late 2024, 2012, remember there was a big push up on the hill to get enlisted pay increased. And so the idea was to increase the pay across the board. And so ultimately, there was a compromise. And instead of doing all enlisted, they did 4.5% across the board. But then later on in April of 25, they settled for a 14.5% increase in E1 through E4. That's about $200 a month extra for E1 and then $300 a month extra for E4. So it was a slight win. But you got to wonder, why not for all of the enlisted across the board? This started at the House Armed Services Committee during the spring and fall of 2024. The proposal was 15% to a 19.5% raise for junior enlisted folks. Devon McCoy says, not about rich, it's paid for your value. And I agree, bro. I agree with you. I agree 100%. It's just, I really don't know why, man. Like, it makes perfect sense to me. I agree with you. But back to the House of Armed Services Committee. So here's the reason why that 15 to 19.5% raise for junior enlisted was denied or reduced. Budget caps, Senate resistance, White House opposition, and then a pending quadrennial review of the military compensation. So really, in the end, targeted junior enlisted pay raise now, study the rest later. So it was kind of like slow roll to a later date. And then the other thing is Congress admitted pay was a problem. They tried to fix it broadly, but got blocked and settled on helping the lowest ranks first. So to me, even though it wasn't a total victory, there's something you can get out of that. They acknowledge that the pay for junior enlisted, maybe even enlisted pay, needs to be increased or needs to be looked at to be increased. So there's hope there, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. And we got to remember, in the end, retention decisions are made on mostly cash flow, not benefit spreadsheets. This goes out to the folks, even myself, I'm guilty, that have told young folks, you say you don't get enough money, but look at all the other benefits you get BAH, BAS, for some folks, special duty pay, free medical care. And we say that's not tax. But in the end, that's not cash in your pocket. That's not, and especially when you compare it again to what the folks on the other side, the officer side, makes. Pay doesn't have to be number one, it just has to be the breaking point. So here's the other thing. The reward for being great at your job is doing a different job. This is for folks who claim that we should go and commission. Tony B says, though it's garbage, the pay chart is not a secret. You know what it is when you join. That shouldn't be the reason you stay or go. Tony, I agree. But in the end, I mean, if you think about it, going off topic, this goes to the folks, your enlisted folks who strive to be commissioned. Y'all put in the chat, y'all tell me For folks you know who were enlisted, who decided to be a commissioned officer, why did they do it? I'm curious. Y'all put in the chat. Question for the chat. Why do you think enlisted folks at tech sergeant, master sergeant, I know folks who made senior and had a line number and they transitioned to be commissioned to be a lieutenant? Why would they do that? Tony B says it is cash in your pocket, to be honest. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So while y'all putting that in the chat, I will tell you why they did it. In my opinion, most folks who are enlisted who strive to be commissioned, because they get paid more. They make more money. I used to hear arguments all the time, and I would say, well, what's the purpose of why you want to be commissioned? They said, well, I want to be a leader on another level. I want to lead a large organization. And I say to myself, you're doing that now. Let me make it clear. I don't have an issue with folks who want to be commissioned to make more money. I don't. But am I wrong, or does that scream the pay is not enough? If you are a master sergeant and you went to commission and become a second lieutenant, what does that tell you? A master sergeant at, say, 13, 14 years is making more than a lieutenant. I'm pulling up the pay chart. Do a quick math. So if you look at a master sergeant, let's say at average time they make it, let's say master sergeant at 12 years. A master sergeant at 12 years makes $5,387 a year. So you go to a second lieutenant coming in at 4 years. Let's say he makes 4 years. No, I'm sorry, at less than 2 years, they're making roughly $39.98, about $4,000. So there's about a $1,500, $2,000 pay gap between a 10-year master sergeant and a second lieutenant. But by the time the second lieutenant gets to what, captain at, say, four years, he's making $7,000. And then a master sergeant, it would take him, he would have to get to, if he doesn't get promoted, he won't reach 7,000 until about 22 years. That's big. I'll pause because I see Pete's there. Pete, you there? Bueller? He looks zoned out. I'll continue. All right, so we got Devon McCoy says OE pay is different. What do you mean by that, bro? Yeah, we are stab one. Cal, man, I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher your last name. You said crossover as an E6, 7 years, 15 years in as an O3E, better for my family and retirement overall. So Cal, you said you was an E6 for 7 pay, better quality of life. Real Tony B says money and opportunity. An officer is also in rooms enlisted or not, which is helpful when you get out. Oh. And so then Tony, then the question is why? Because they're an officer? I mean, that's a topic for another show. I've seen many times where I've worked with a particular commander and they've said, well, all this time we've had chiefs in the room and they never say anything. That's a topic for another day. I won't say that. That's a topic for another day. Okay, but Cal, thanks for your comment, man. You're telling us why you crossed over. So continuing on. So to folks who say, if enlisted, if you're tired of not making enough money as an enlisted versus a commissioned officer, you can just go on commission. Not everybody's pathway is to be commissioned. Not only that, everybody can't be an officer. Somebody's got to do the work, right? And I think I would argue there's a lot of enlisted folks who are proud that they're not officers. You ever heard the term, don't call me sir, I work for a living? There's some people that are proud about that. Del Brown said, what's up, y'all? Got 2 words for you. The fight's on. Yes, the fight's on. Well, you're not in Korea no more, so I can't say that one. So anyway, but yeah, fight's on. Anyway, moving on. So here's another reason why there is proof that there's an issue with pay. Everything we talked about in this show so far as the differences in pay using a tech sergeant versus a master sergeant, and then we also captured how you have the tech sergeant in an organization doing a lot of the work as far as like the daily blocking and tackling, taking care of airmen, making sure things get done, their expertise they have, versus maybe an officer who's been in at the same time frame. Then some people would say again, you can just go commission. Well, here's another example why we know the pay system needs to be changed and altered. They created the warrant officer system in the Air Force. Devon McCoy said, DC, with all due respect, your tier contradicts themselves. Are you talking about chiefs? Your old tier. What do you mean old tier? Help enlighten me. What do you mean by old tier? Anyway, moving on. So the Air Force created the warrant officer system. So for your folks who are cyber airmen, who are well experienced in jobs that on the outside of the Air Force would get compensated a lot more handsomely than being in the Air Force, they created the warrant officer system. And so if you are a cyber airman, you're good to go. Now you become a warrant officer, you make more money. You're in the warrant officer tier. So when the Air Force needed cyber airmen to stay, it changed the system. You retired. Ha ha, you hater. So my argument is, I'm not saying the warrant officer system is bad. It just shows that the pay needs to be changed. And that's a story for another day. But just to throw it in the chat, should it be just cyber airmen? Do you think security forces should have warrant officers? Maybe not K9 troops, though. I don't think it takes a specialty to be a K9 troop. Nor do I think a specialty to be a CADM troop. But maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say, but I definitely think maintainers should consider having a warrant officer system. Definitely maintainers. Okay, moving on. So from 2023 to 2025, senior leaders said affordability affects retention. Congress agreed and passed a historic pay raise. Again, but only from E1 through E4. The Air Force changed the system again for cyber. So the debate is whether the system can change. Is why these changes stop at technical sergeant. So in the end, how do we fix this? I don't know. I don't know. I have my ideas. I mean, if we think about it, the hard stopper line is the education. I, as a young civilian or civilian in general, comes into the Air Force. I don't have a degree, or I have a degree and I don't apply to go commission. I'm going in the enlisted track. I, as an individual with a degree, or who doesn't have a degree and apply for the academy, I go to the academy. If I have a degree, I go to ROTC. Then I become a commission officer. Two different pathways, two different pays. How do we address, or is there a way to find some system where your enlisted folks get compensated for having a degree, specifically in their career field? So ideally, if you are like Devon, who's been in, I don't know, 50 years, I'm just kidding. But let's say you have an admin troop who's been in, say, 10 years, and they have a bachelor's degree or master's degree in human resources. Should they not be paid, be compensated for that? I mean, how many times has your supervisors tell you it's important to get your CCAF degree done? Not a requirement to get promoted unless you go to those senior NCO tiers. But how many times have we told people, encouraged people to get their degree? Someone mentioned earlier in the show, well, what's the point if we don't get recognized for it? One of my proposals would be, if you have a degree in your primary career field, you should get some type of special pay for it. Devon McCoy says, or similar to FLPB foreign language pay. I agree. Or SDAP. I agree. I agree. Especially, and there should be a caveat to that. If I, as a cop, have a master's or bachelor's degree in criminal justice, homeland security, or something, and I receive special pay for it, there should be an additional, say, service requirement. I don't know. Maybe you add another 2 3 years. Question: if you out there had a degree in your primary career field, and the Air Force was willing to pay you extra for it, a certain, I don't know, stipend every month. Let's say, let's just say, for sake of argument, bachelor's $300, master's $400, but you had to stay an additional 2 years on top of your service commitment. Would you take it? I'm curious. I think I probably would. I mean, I would argue if I'm a master sergeant at the time and I have a master's degree and I'm already staying the 20, and the Air Force is gonna be like, hey, you got a master's degree in your AFSC. We are going to pay you a form of special duty pay for you having that degree, but you gotta serve an additional 3 years. I think it's a win, in my opinion. Curious to see what y'all think. So that's one thing. Um, and I'm sure they could do it. I mean, again, they brought in the warrant officer system. So I'm sure there's a way you can do it. Back to the officers. So who I have a lot of good friends who are officers. Devon McCoy says 10-year commitment. Are you saying they should add in a 10-year commitment if they did it? If so, I mean, I would be fine with that too, as long as I'm getting paid for it. But to my officer friends out there, um, much respect for you guys. Not everybody can be an officer. It is a huge responsibility to be a commander. It is. I am just saying, for your enlisted folks who you rely on to get the mission done. And not only that, what do we say and what do you say all the time? How important the enlisted force is, especially the NCO Corps. The NCO Corps is a backbone of the Air Force. They deserve to be paid more. Kyle says if you use TA, you will get a service commitment anyway. Would be better if you got a service commitment and special pay too. That is true. Devon says, yeah, equivalent to O to E OTS commitment. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. My son is currently serving, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons why he's going to transition after 10 years is because of the pay. That's part of it. And just like to one of our other listeners earlier, I forgot he was a former K9 troop, got his 2 degrees in the Air Force, transitioned out and started to become or do, I believe he said electronic warfare, getting paid 6 figures. And he left a tech sergeant, pretty young. So there is something to be said about service before self and being committed, because there is a sense of pride I know I had in serving. But I still think we need to find a way to take better care of our enlisted folks. So we can go on all day about this, but to put a bow on it, we need to find a way to do better. I think each and every one of us, we owe it to ourselves to reach out to these organizations like the Air Force Sergeants Association and provide our comments on what we can do to change the system. Tony Feliciano says, will the additional compensation be an added pay or something identified by base pay? Because that matters. If an O gets more base pay due to degree and level of responsibility tied to their base pay, I want that too, because I want my retirement to get better. Good point. Cal says security forces all 15 years. E and O. I have seen the struggle both ways. Cal, that's an interesting perspective, man. You were an E and then you transitioned to the O. What do you think about all this? I mean, if you can summarize it in the comments, man. Do you think the pay is legit compared to the responsibility between the E and O? Or do you agree there's an issue? And if so, what do you propose how they fix it? You know, there are some folks that would say changing the system would mess up the hierarchy between the enlisted and officers. To that, I would say that's ridiculous. I mean, you need officers. You need officers, but you need enlisted folks too. I think you would have more of a commitment for some of your enlisted airmen if they were more compensated. And a lot of these folks are starting off with families at a young age, and they're super sharp. I've met some very sharp young airmen, young NCOs. I've met several airmen come into the military with a master's degree. Now, most people would say, why didn't they go straight to be a commissioned officer? Well, don't know if it's true, but most of them told me they wanted to see what it was like to actually do a lot of the laborious, the laborious work, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and then they would decide if they want to be an officer or not, which I think that's pretty cool. So, anyway, to put a bow on it, yes, military disparity exists between enlisted and officer. We need to find a way to do better. Folks like or organizations like the Air Force Sergeant Association, kudos to y'all for continuing to fight the good fight. Um, for the SimSAF, Dave Wolf, I'm sure he's going to do everything he can to address it up at the Hill to make changes for the airmen. He already stated that in his change of responsibility address. Shout out to all the other SimSAFs who've been trying to, between Dave Flossie, SimSAF Bass, and former Chief Master Sergeant Air Force Khalif Wright as well. But we all need to do our part too. Have those tough conversations with your commanders, express to them how the airmen are living between going to base, trying to find affordable housing, but it's difficult on the BAH they receive. And I know some people would say that's a different matter, but that's all included in pay. That's all included in pay. Um, One thing that quickly comes to mind is I remember there was an old chief that told me right during the housing crisis that, if you're a tech sergeant, this is the type of house you should expect versus, say, another rank. Is that true? Maybe there's some truth to that, but I think we all want to have an opportunity to take care of our family and have the best living quarters we can get. So, anyway, we will close on that. Super Bowl Sunday coming up later on tonight at 17:30 Central Standard Time. Don't know who y'all rooting for. I don't have a dog in the fight. The Birds are not in it. But if I had to pick one, it'd be the Seattle Seahawks because I'm tired of the Patriots winning Super Bowls. So I am looking forward to the Super Bowl. I'm interested to see how the halftime show will go with Bad Bunny, and then the alternate halftime show with Kid Rock. Who knows how that would go? I'm sure it'll be interesting to watch all together. But in the meantime, we appreciate y'all being here. We will see y'all on later next week, and more importantly, next Sunday. We appreciate the folks who hit in our DMs and give us ideas for shows just like this one. Keep them coming. If there's something else you want us to address, we will address it, and we will give you the credit for it as well. And we thank y'all for listening. Enjoy y'all Sunday.